If you're watching this video, you already know the feeling. You know every grammar rule. You've memorized hundreds of vocabulary words. But the moment someone asks you a question in English, your mind goes blank. And then it happens. You start translating, word by word, sentence by sentence. And by the time you've finished translating in your head, the conversation has already moved on. This lesson can change the way you speak English forever. Because today, we're not going to talk about grammar rules or vocabulary lists. We're going to talk about something deeper. Something most English learners never realize is the real reason they don't sound fluent. Here's the truth. The biggest mistake isn't your grammar. It isn't your accent. It isn't even your vocabulary. The biggest mistake is that you're still thinking in your native language and translating every single thought into English before you speak. And that translation gap, that's what's stealing your confidence. That's what makes you hesitate, stumble, and feel like you're not good enough, even when you actually know the language. Today, you're going to discover how real fluent speakers think, not translate, in English. We're going to learn the exact mental shift that turns hesitant learners into confident speakers. This isn't about knowing more words. It's about training your brain to work in a completely new way. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why translating is holding you back. And more importantly, you'll know how to start breaking free from it. Starting today, starting with your very next sentence. So take a breath. Let go of the pressure to be perfect. You don't need a bigger vocabulary right now. You need a new habit. And that habit starts with the first step, right here. Let's begin with the moment where everything changes. The moment you stop translating and start truly thinking in English. Let's start with something that might feel a little uncomfortable to admit. But trust me, once you see it clearly, everything starts to change. Right now, when someone speaks to you in English, what actually happens inside your mind? Be honest. Do you hear the English words, and then quietly, automatically, your brain flips them into your native language? And then, before you respond, do you think of what you want to say in your own language first? And only after that, translate it back into English. If that's you, I want you to know something important. You are not slow. You are not bad at English. You are simply using a strategy that was never designed to make you fluent. It was only ever designed to help you survive. When you first started learning English, translation was actually useful. It gave you a bridge. It helped you understand new words by connecting them to something familiar. That's completely normal, and honestly, it's how most of us begin. But here's the problem. A bridge is meant to be crossed, not lived on. And so many learners get stuck standing in the middle of that bridge for years, translating every single sentence, when they were always capable of walking all the way to the other side. Think about what translation actually costs you. Every single time you translate, your brain has to do 3 separate jobs. First, it has to understand the English input. Second, it has to convert that meaning into your native language. Third, it has to convert your response back into English again, checking grammar, checking word order, checking pronunciation, all before a single word leaves your mouth. That's not 1 step. That's 3 steps, happening in a split second, over and over again, in every conversation. No wonder you feel exhausted after speaking English for even 10 minutes. No wonder you freeze when someone asks you a quick question. It's not because you lack knowledge. It's because your brain is doing 3 times the work it needs to do. And here's the part that changes everything. Fluent speakers don't translate. They don't run every sentence through their native language first. Instead, when they hear the word coffee, they picture coffee. They feel the warmth, the smell, the moment, directly in English, without any detour through another language. When they want to express an idea, the English words simply rise up on their own, because their brain has built a direct connection between meaning and English, not between meaning, their native language, and then English. This is the real difference between someone who knows English and someone who speaks English with ease. It's not about how many words you've memorized. It's about how directly your brain can access those words without translating first. So here's what I want you to start noticing today. Not changing yet, just noticing. Pay attention to the moments when you catch yourself translating. Maybe it's when you're ordering food. Maybe it's when you're texting a friend. Maybe it's right now, as you're processing what I'm saying. Just notice it, gently, without judging yourself. Awareness is always the first step toward change, because once you can see the translation habit clearly, you can start replacing it. Not through more grammar drills, well, through memorizing longer word lists, but through a completely different kind of practice. A practice that trains your brain to connect directly with English, the same way it connects directly with your native language. And that's exactly what we're going to build together in the next part of this lesson. You didn't get this far by accident. You've already put in the work, the vocabulary, the grammar, the listening practice. What's been missing isn't more effort. It's the right kind of training. And I promise you, that training is simpler and more natural than you think. So stay with me, because in the next step, I'm going to show you the exact daily habit that starts trick rewiring your brain to think in English. Not tomorrow, not someday, but starting with your very next practice session. Now that you understand why translation has been slowing you down, let's talk about the solution. And I promise you, it's not what you expect. It's not a complicated app. It's not an expensive course. It's not some secret trick that only gifted language learners know about. It's something so simple that most people overlook it completely, even though it's sitting right in front of them every single day. The habit is this. Label your world in English, out loud, in real time. Let me explain what I mean. Right now, wherever you're sitting, look around you. You see a cup, a window, a chair, a phone in your hand. For years, when you looked at these objects, your brain silently named them in your native language first. That silent naming happens so fast, so automatically, that you don't even notice it's happening. But it's there, and it's one of the biggest reasons your brain defaults to translation. So here's the shift. Instead of letting your brain silently label things in your native language, you're going to interrupt that pattern, gently, consistently, by naming things directly in English as you go about your day. Not in a formal, sit down and study way. In a light, natural, ongoing way, woven into moments you already have. When you're making your morning coffee, say quietly to yourself, I'm pouring the water. It's hot, I'm adding sugar. When you're walking to your car, think, the sky is cloudy today. I hope it doesn't rain. When you're getting ready for bed, say, I'm tired, but today was a good day. These aren't complicated sentences. They don't need to be beautiful or grammatically perfect. Their entire purpose is to build a new pathway in your brain, one that connects real, lived experience directly to English, without your native language stepping in as the middleman. Here's why this works so powerfully. Your brain doesn't build fluency through memorization alone. It builds fluency through repetition, tied to real, meaningful context. When you repeat, I'm pouring the water, while you are actually pouring water, you're not just learning a sentence, you're attaching English directly to a lived sensation, a real action, a real moment. That connection is far stronger than anything you could memorize from a textbook, because your brain isn't storing it as information, it's storing it as experience. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need extra time for this. You don't need to add another hour to your busy day. You just need to borrow the moments you already have. Brushing your teeth, cooking dinner, walking the dog, waiting for the bus, and fill them with quiet, simple English narration. 2 minutes here, 3 minutes there. It adds up faster than you think. And unlike an app or a workbook, it never runs out of material, because your life is always giving you new things to describe. I know what you might be thinking. This feels too simple to actually work. I understand that feeling completely. We're often taught that real progress has to be hard, structured, and exhausting. But fluency isn't built in a classroom. It's built in the small, repeated moments where your brain practices reaching for English first, instead of reaching for your native language and translating afterward. This habit trains exactly that reflex. Start small. Choose just one part of your day, maybe your morning routine, maybe your commute, and commit to narrating it in English for 1 week. Don't worry about mistakes. Don't worry about sounding silly, even if you're speaking to no one but yourself. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is repetition, because repetition is what rewires the brain. As this becomes natural, you'll start to notice something remarkable. You'll catch yourself thinking in English without even trying. A thought will simply appear in English first, before your native language even has the chance to interrupt. That moment, that first spontaneous English thought, is one of the most exciting milestones in your entire fluency journey. And this habit is what gets you there. But narrating your world is only the first layer. To truly train your brain to sound natural, rhythmic, and confident, you need to combine this habit with something even more powerful, a technique that fluent speakers have used for decades to master pronunciation, rhythm, and natural flow. And that's exactly what we're going to uncover next. If narrating your world in English is the first layer of thinking in English, then shadowing is the layer that transforms how that English actually sounds when it leaves your mouth. And I want you to pay close attention here, because this is one of the most powerful and most underused techniques in the entire world of language learning. So what exactly is shadowing? It's simple to explain, but powerful in practice. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating what they say almost at the same time. Not after they finish the sentence, not with a long pause to think, but right alongside them, like a shadow following a person's every move. You're not translating, you're not analyzing grammar, you're not stopping to look up a word. You're simply copying the sounds, the rhythm, the pauses, the rise and fall of their voice in real time. At first, this might feel strange, even a little uncomfortable. You might stumble over words. You might feel like you're just mimicking sounds without truly understanding them. And that's completely okay, because that discomfort is actually a sign that something important is happening. You're bypassing the translation step entirely. There's no time to translate when you're shadowing. Your brain has no choice but to process English as English and produce English as English in real time, exactly the way a fluent speaker does. This is why shadowing is so different from traditional study methods. When you sit and memorize vocabulary lists or grammar rules, you're building knowledge, but knowledge alone doesn't create fluency. Muscle memory does. Speaking a language fluently isn't just a mental skill. It's a physical one. Your tongue, your lips, your breath, your vocal rhythm all need to learn new patterns. The same way your hands need to learn new patterns when you first learn to play a musical instrument. Shadowing trains that physical, muscular side of speaking that grammar books simply cannot touch. Think about the way fluent English speakers connect words together. How want to becomes wanna. How going to becomes gonna. How sentences rise and fall with natural music instead of sounding flat and robotic. You cannot learn this from a textbook. You can only absorb it by hearing it and repeating it, again and again, until your mouth and your ears start to recognize that rhythm as normal. That's exactly what shadowing gives you. Not just correct words, but a natural, believable English voice. Here's how to start. Even today, choose a short piece of audio, a movie clip, a podcast segment, an interview, even a 1-minute video, something with clear speech, ideally with a transcript you can follow. Play just a few seconds at a time, listen closely, then play it again, and this time, speak along with the recording as closely as you can, matching not just the words, but the tone, the speed, and the emotion behind them. Don't aim for perfection on your first try. Aim for closeness. Aim for the feeling of sounding like them, even if it's rough at first. Repeat that same short clip several times. You'll notice something fascinating happen. By the third or fourth repetition, the sentence starts to feel less like something foreign you're copying, and more like something that belongs to you. That's your brain building a direct, automatic connection between meaning and sound, the exact same connection fluent speakers have, the connection that lets them speak without pausing to translate. Over time, as you shadow a little every day, something beautiful starts to happen outside of your practice sessions too. You'll notice your everyday speech naturally borrowing the rhythm and phrasing you've been practicing. Sentences will start to flow instead of feeling like they're being assembled piece by piece. Your pronunciation will soften and smooth out, sounding less like you're reading words and more like you're truly speaking them. This is why shadowing and the narration habit from Keynote 2 work so powerfully together. Narration teaches your brain to reach for English thoughts directly. Shadowing teaches your mouth and ears to produce and recognize that English naturally, with real rhythm and real confidence. Together, they attack the translation habit from two directions at once: the thinking side and the speaking side. And once these two habits start working together in your daily life, something even more exciting becomes possible. Taking this practice beyond structured sessions and weaving it seamlessly into the ordinary moments of your everyday life, which is exactly what we're going to explore next. By now, you've learned two powerful habits: narrating your world in English and shadowing native speakers to train your natural rhythm. But here's a question worth asking honestly. How many of us start a new habit with excitement, only to let it quietly disappear after a few days, buried under the busyness of daily life? If you've felt that before, please don't be hard on yourself. It happens to almost everyone. The real secret to fluency isn't finding more time. It's learning to weave English into the time you already have. This is where so many learners go wrong. They believe that real progress only happens during official study time, sitting down with a textbook, opening an app, scheduling a lesson. And because that structured time is often hard to find consistently, progress feels slow and motivation fades. But fluency doesn't ask for an hour of your undivided attention. It asks for small, repeated moments of connection with the language, spread naturally across your day. So let's talk about how to actually do this. How to turn ordinary, unremarkable moments into quiet English training sessions without adding anything extra to your schedule. Start with your morning. Before you even get out of bed, take 30 seconds to think through your plan for the day. In English: I need to finish that report. I should call my sister later. I want to go for a walk this evening. You're not writing an essay. You're simply letting your first thoughts of the day be English thoughts, gently setting the tone for how your brain will operate for the next few hours. Then think about your commute, whether you're driving, walking, or riding public transport. This is often dead time, time your brain spends on autopilot. What if, instead, you used a few of those minutes to describe what you see around you, the way we practiced in Keynote 2? That building is so tall, I wonder what that store sells. The traffic is heavier than usual today. Or use that same time to shadow a short podcast clip, letting the rhythm of English fill a space that would otherwise be empty. Meal times offer another quiet opportunity. As you're cooking, try narrating each step in English. First, I'll chop the onions. Now I'll heat the oil. As you eat, describe the taste, the texture, even your opinion of the meal. These moments feel almost too ordinary to matter, but that's exactly the point. Fluency is built in ordinary moments, repeated consistently, far more than in occasional, intense study sessions. Even your evening wind-down can become a small practice space. Instead of scrolling through your phone in silence, try narrating your reflections on the day in English. Today was tiring, but I got a lot done. Tomorrow, I want to try waking up earlier. This isn't about achieving perfect grammar in the moment. It's about giving your brain one more small, low-pressure repetition of thinking directly in English. Here's what makes this approach so sustainable. None of these moments require you to find time. You're not adding a new block to your calendar. You're simply changing what happens inside moments that were already there. Moments that used to pass by in silence or in your native language and are now quietly building your English fluency instead. And there's something even more important happening beneath the surface. Each time you use English in these small, everyday moments, you're sending a message to your own brain. English isn't just something I study, it's something I live in. That shift, from studying a subject to living inside a language, is exactly what separates learners who eventually plateau from those who become truly fluent. I want you to choose just one part of your daily routine right now. Your morning, your commute, your cooking time, whatever feels most natural to you, and commit to filling it with English, narration, or shadowing practice for the next 7 days. Not perfectly, not for hours, just consistently, in that one small window you already have. Because fluency was never going to arrive through one long, dramatic study session. It arrives quietly, moment by moment, the same way it arrived when you first learned your native language, through repetition, through context, through everyday life. And as these small moments accumulate, something remarkable begins to happen inside you, not just in your English, but in how you feel about yourself as a speaker. And that emotional shift is exactly what we're going to explore in our final and most powerful keynote. Let's talk about something that no grammar book will ever teach you, but that matters more than almost anything else on your journey to fluency. How you feel about yourself when you speak English. Think back to a moment when you hesitated to speak, maybe in a meeting, maybe with a native speaker, maybe even in your own head while rehearsing what you wanted to say. What stopped you in that moment? Be honest. It probably wasn't that you didn't know the words. It probably wasn't even a grammar rule you couldn't remember. It was fear. Fear of making a mistake. Fear of sounding foreign. Fear of being judged. That fear is heavier than any vocabulary list, and it's been quietly holding back learners who are far more capable than they believe themselves to be. Here's something I want you to truly absorb. Confidence doesn't arrive after fluency. Confidence is what creates fluency. The learners who sound the most natural in English aren't always the ones with the biggest vocabulary or the most perfect grammar. They're the ones who are willing to speak anyway, mistakes and all, without letting fear freeze their mouths shut. Fluency is not the reward you get for being fearless. Fluency is what grows out of practicing while afraid, again and again, until the fear gets smaller and your voice gets stronger. This is why the habits we'll gain together in this lesson matter so much more than they might seem on the surface. Every time you narrate your world in English, you are quietly telling yourself, I am someone who thinks in English. Every time you shadow a native speaker, even imperfectly, you are proving to yourself, I am someone who can produce these sounds. And every time you weave English into your ordinary daily moments, you are reinforcing a new identity. Not a person studying English, but a person who lives partly in English. That identity shift is where real, lasting confidence comes from. I want you to notice something important. You don't need to wait until you're fluent to start feeling confident. In fact, waiting for confidence to arrive before you speak is one of the most common traps learners fall into. And it's a trap that can keep you stuck for years. Confidence isn't a finish line. It's a muscle. And like any muscle, it only grows through use, through the small, sometimes uncomfortable act of speaking before you feel ready. So here's what I want you to remember, especially on the days when English feels difficult, when you stumble over a sentence, or when you catch yourself translating again out of old habit. That moment is not failure. That moment is proof that you are actively rewiring your brain. Every fluent speaker you admire went through this exact same process. The hesitation, the mistakes, the awkward pauses, and kept going anyway. The only real difference between them and where you are right now is time and repetition, both of which are completely within your control. Let go of the idea that you need to sound perfect. Native speakers make mistakes too. They stumble, they pause, they correct themselves mid-sentence. What makes someone sound fluent isn't the absence of mistakes. It's the presence of confidence, flow, and the willingness to keep speaking even when it isn't perfect. That's a skill you can build starting today, in your very next sentence. As you continue practicing the habits from this lesson, narrating your world, shadowing native voices, weaving English into your daily moments, I want you to also practice one more thing: speaking to yourself with kindness. Celebrate the small wins. Notice when a sentence came out more naturally than before. Notice when you caught yourself thinking in English without trying. These small victories are not small at all. They are the building blocks of the confident, fluent speaker you are becoming. You already have everything you need to begin. Not someday, not when you feel ready enough, but right now, in this very moment. Every fluent speaker was once exactly where you are, full of doubt, but still willing to try. The only thing separating you from the confident English speaker you want to become is consistent practice and the courage to keep going, even when it feels imperfect. So take a breath, believe in the progress you're already making, and carry that belief with you into your very next English sentence.